America is essentially a dream. It is a dream of a land where men of all races, of all nationalities, and of all creeds can live together as brothers. The substance of the dream is expressed in these profound words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Welcome to Truman's Town Hall with your host, Matt Truman.
Hello. This is Matt Truman. Thank you for downloading this episode. Thank you for sharing with a friend. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day today. Today's the 18th of January, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Hope everyone is enjoying it. Today on the podcast, I am bringing on a friend, someone I've known practically my whole life. And we have never had a conversation about race or what's happening around the world until yesterday. So I asked him to come on the podcast so we could have this conversation and folks could listen and, you know, maybe come away with different ideas. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Damon Drake. All right. Damon Drake, welcome to Truman's Town Hall. Thank you for doing the podcast.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it.
So tell the audience a little bit about yourself before we get talking about all this stuff.
Well, I am a 46-year-old black man living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, father, husband. I am educated, and I have been working in my career in the field of media for about going on close to 30 years now. Wow. So yeah, I am a mentor, and I am an avid thrift store shopper. That's how I get down. And a humongous Dallas Cowboy fan. So I know that most people out there don't like that. But whatever.
Who dey?
Right.
So I wanted to bring you on here because you and I have never really had a conversation on race or what is going on in the world, and I figured, you know, what better day to do this than Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and
of course.
So just to I wanted to give that a little background story. What are your thoughts? When you were growing up, what were you taught about Martin Luther King Jr.?
I was taught, you know what, looking back, I like to think that my education on Martin Luther King Jr. now, like I said, looking back, was really unfair. Because if you remember correctly, coming up when I came up, Martin Luther King Jr. was the only Black history that you received.
Right.
It was it. It was period. That was it. Everything else was American, quote unquote, American history. Black history, it was just Martin Luther King Jr., and we only got taught that in January. So the thought behind it was that he was such a freedom fighter, and we should all get along because of him. He was the reason. He was the one that tried to bring us all together. And while he was a very significant part of it, he is one of the all-time leaders, if not the all-time leader, of the civil rights movement. There were so many more. and there was so much education that was left out. You know, it hurts now to find out that our education system was just skimming over a lot of what true American history was, what we needed to know, what we should have got from other leaders that were out there, so that they knew. But everything you got that was anything related to Black history was always Martin Luther King. That's all I could tell you coming up. That was it.
Right. So, do you think, having children yourself, do you think that it's gotten better? Do you think it really falls on the families, the parents, to educate their kids on Black history or history in general? What are your thoughts there?
Well, you know what? It definitely has not gotten that much better in school. It has gotten better as far as a lot of parents wishing to educate their own children.
Right.
I need to inform you about what's going on out here today. I need to get you informed with these with other leaders and other books and other documentaries, films, things that you need to study up on and really get a knowledge of what else is out there. It's not just our lives are not just centered around Martin Luther King. Now, that being said, Martin Luther King Jr. was the epitome of greatness. He was as sound a leader as you will ever find. And his story does need to be cherished. His legacy is one that will never die down, and his birthday is one that should be celebrated by everyone.
Agreed. Looking back, and I've always had to go through different things about history to learn it for myself. They do water down a lot of things in school. One of the things I did learn was that Martin Luther King Jr. was very into Gandhi. Like he studied Gandhi and the way Gandhi used his peaceful protesting to win independence for India against the British. So he studied that and felt that was the way to go. And then there were other leaders throughout history, like Malcolm X, who didn't feel that was the way to go. It felt like you had to fight back. When you're talking about other leaders need to be out there, who are you talking about? Like who would you like other people to research, look into? Other Black leaders.
I definitely am an advocate of a lot of Malcolm's ways. More towards the end of his tenure, but Malcolm was definitely a heavy hitter.
Right.
See, we've gotten to a time where a lot of the times, like I said early on, for me anyway, the Black community, a lot of times we leaned on our understanding of, which was very limited, of civil rights and God. We leaned on the church. So a lot of things were, we were just trying to figure out what our own personal rights were. We were getting the shaft a long time ago. And when Malcolm stepped up to the podium, he said, no, by any means necessary, we're not going to continue to take this. You're not going to continue to punch me in my face, and I'm going to continue to turn my back and turn the other cheek. It's not going to continue like this. Now, that was seemingly Martin's way.
Right.
But
he got punched in the face when he was at a podium. He invited some guy up. Hey, let's talk about this. The guy came up, beat him in the face. He got stabbed. I don't know if that's taught in history. He got stabbed and then ultimately assassinated. So
yes. Martin Luther King said, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And that, I still believe to this day, is very much true.
Right.
But if you're going to continue to stand in my face and hate me, and I've tried it your way, and all that is happening, all that's happening when I try to do things in a different way is that you're hating it even more because I'm starting to come up now. The equality. It's starting to get closer. What we can't say. Yes, there's still racism. Yes, it's still heavy in America. But what we can't say is it is now what it was then. In terms of there are no more black-white bathrooms. There are no more black-white water fountains. I can sit anywhere I want to on the bus. You know what I mean? It's
right.
It's not the same. It's not the same level. Up until recently, I really didn't think I was going to have to worry about ever having dogs, attack dogs, sicked on me during a protest or water hoses turned on me. Those were extremes and things that happened back in the day. But it's starting to show itself again. And it's really an uncovering, letting us know that we haven't come as far as we might think we have. One of Martin's greatest quotes was, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere."
Right. Let's talk about the justice system real quick. It seems like we could discuss a whole lot of different things, but for your perspective, how do you feel the justice system has gotten better or worse, and what is the key, or what do you think the key is to fixing the justice system? Because it's obviously it's not the blind lady with the scales that we would like to portray it as. There is a difference in how, for instance, Martin Luther King was tracked by the FBI. His phones were bugged. He was, followed when he would travel to go speak or to go lead protests. And in 2027, I believe they're going to release, the FBI or the Justice Department is supposed to release the Martin Luther King tapes. But so essentially, what do you think about the justice system in this country?
I don't think highly of the justice system at all, and neither do most of the people most of my community. I'll say, anytime you can assassinate, and I use that word strongly, assassinate a black man in this country, and you are the law.
Right.
No, and my community itself, we know. The bad part about it is, first thing is, I can't believe this happened. Second thought is, I can't believe this happened again. And the third thought is, that cop is going to get off. So that where justice lies in the courts and in the authorities, we are being demonized and taken down on a constant basis. I looked at a list last night that had over 100 names on it from just the black people that were murdered by law enforcement in Maryland alone. Just in Maryland. Nowhere else. Just in Maryland.
Huh.
And I was dumbfounded. I look. Our young men are getting incarcerated at a rate that is just astronomical.
I believe per capita, the United States incarcerates more people than China, than the world combined.
And that in itself is insane just because of the sheer numbers. Just because of the sheer numbers. China has 1 billion people, and we are incarcerating more daily. That's insane. It's insane. And you're constantly, and for what? Now the question is for what? The same thing that a lot of my young brothers are incarcerated for right now. Governments are finally coming to realize it's not that big a deal. When I say that, I mean, look at the sale of marijuana.
Right.
These young men selling stuff that isn't half as strong as the stuff I could go up to Illinois right now and into a dispensary and purchase.
Correct. Yeah, the war on drugs has done a number on our country, the black community, all of us.
Just regular weed. And you've put black men in jail for years, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years for the sale of the same thing that you finally come to realize isn't that big a deal. So we're going to sell it now, legal. We're going to make it legal. We're going to sell it now, and we're going to reap the benefit of the taxes that come back from it.
Billions and billions.
And as a community, a lot of them are still locked up for those same charges. If you even realize that, oh, okay, now this is the moneymaker, how come you can't let them out?
Right.
These small, minor charges. Alcohol is still running rampant, and as far as I know, it's still out here killing as many people daily.
It is. It not only the substance itself kills people, but so does, when you get drunk and then you get angry and then you go murder somebody. That's part of that.
But will never be outlawed because of the money that it brings in for the state.
Right.
So we look at a justice system that is run like everything else in America by the color of the money.
So what do you think a solution would be? State by state, like they're doing it, legalizing marijuana, or is a federal solution more on the lines of what needs to happen?
I would say across the board, federal. And then I would say both. It would a federal mandate with state options to where the state can say, okay, this is how much we're taking off the top from these dispensaries, or this, but whatever happens, they have to reopen the trials and the cases of these young men who are incarcerated for the same thing you now decided. And you know what? Today it's legal.
Right.
And my people have been going to jail for years and years and years because, first of all, they can't get a lot of them can't get the same breaks as other people, so they're looking to do whatever they can to make a buck. You're looking to do whatever they can. And a lot of times people don't want to hear that. They don't want to face that. Oh, you don't have to do that. Oh, you can go work at McDonald's. Okay, that is the smuggest attitude that you can have. You want me as an adult to go and pull down maybe $75, $100, $200 a week paycheck, and I've got children that I have to feed in a home that I have to provide for. Sometimes it just is what it is. And when you go out there and you do these things, the problem becomes, or the problem is now, that, hey, I've done this, and now you're saying as a government that it is not that bad. It's not bad at all. It's not bad. It's not bad as long as it's making you money. But when it was making us money, it was the worst thing in the world, and we had to be locked up for it. It's not a fair fight. We have to come to the table, and we have to make all things fair. And that's where that's what I don't believe that'll ever happen.
You don't believe that'll happen?
No, I don't believe it'll happen. I don't believe it'll happen. Because in order to happen, like we talked about before, Matt, like we talked about before, it all involves the privilege. And one thing that a person in the lead does not want to give up is their privilege. If I gave you 50-second head start in a race, and there's a good chance if you and I ran the exact same race, I may get ahead of you. You're not going to give up that 50 seconds. And you don't want to give up that 50 seconds. And you're going to do whatever you can to protect your privilege.
Well, I like things, from where I sit, I like things to be fair and equal. I don't want a head start. So
here's the thing. It's easy, and I don't mean to, you know what I mean? I don't
speak
mean to
freely.
I don't mean to poke the bear, but it's easy to say that when you have it, and and you have it a lot of the times, and don't even have to acknowledge it. You know what I mean? You don't even have to. You wake up every day and it's just there. It's just there. It's just a part of life. That privilege, it is there. We live in a time.
So explain that a little. I guess what I'm trying to say is, on your end, being a black man, how do you see it as white folks have a privilege versus black folks? So just to elaborate that so folks understand listening.
Okay. I'll give it to you in two different ways. First, I'll revert back to what we talked about earlier, when we talked about Martin Luther King Jr. being the only black history that we knew.
Right.
White privilege is your history being taught as part of the core curriculum, and mine being taught as an elective. You could go and get black history if you want to nowadays. You couldn't even do that back when we were coming up. There was no course. That course exists now, but it's an elective. Now, if you want to hear about some black history going on, like our history isn't American history. And from the other perspective, having that privilege, it doesn't mean that you don't have a difficult life. It doesn't mean that things don't get hard for you sometimes.
Right.
It just simply means that the color of your skin isn't one of the things contributing to your difficulty. You don't have to get up and have to contend with the fact that you're this color. I am this color, and it immediately puts me at a disadvantage. It puts me at a disadvantage when I'm trying to buy a home. It puts me at a disadvantage a lot of times when I'm trying to buy a car. It puts me at a disadvantage when I'm trying to get an education. It puts me at a disadvantage out here in these streets when I'm just trying to go to work. Then one day, let me tell you.
Yeah, hit me.
One day, I was on my way to work, minding my own business, man. I get pulled over by the police. Police got me pulled over to one side. 3 cars. All cops get out, and they're talking to me. somebody fits your description has been running around these neighborhoods, setting off fireworks. And I'm like, what are you talking about? If they fit your description and they've been running, they've been out here setting off these fireworks. Let me see your hands, and let me see this, and here's the thing. You pulled me over, and I was on foot. I wasn't even in a car. At the time, I'm a 43-year-old man. I'm walking. I have my headphones on, minding my own business, listening to a Christian podcast, walking to work.
Huh.
I fit a description. I'm over 250 pounds. I fit a description. I'm out here doing. That's the description. The description you got was a gray-haired man walking with. No, that's not the description you got. That's not if you got a description at all.
So, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, where you're at, did they have stop and frisk like they did in New York? Was that something that was?
You know what? I know if they did once upon a time, it's not a thing anymore like that. But it is Milwaukee itself has gotten better from what I've seen. Anyway, I'll say that
through the government.
Milwaukee itself has gotten better as far as the police department. It's the surrounding area. See, Milwaukee is full of surrounding areas. Like the street I'm on right here is called Brown Deer Road. And on Brown Deer Road, depending on how far you go up or how far you come down, you will cross 6 municipalities. And just driving to work, I have been stopped by all 6. By all 6 municipalities.
What are the reasons? What are the reasons they give you for pulling you over?
I've never gotten a speeding ticket. It's never been a speeding ticket. Once I was actually pulled over for a correct reason. I got pulled over because my tags were old.
Okay.
But other than that, I got pulled over on suspicion. I once got pulled over here in Brown Deer where I stay. Got pulled over, and this was now you knew me back when, Matt, when I was like really, really huge, when I was a really big guy. Right. So I got pulled out of the car, and they were telling me that my license was suspended, and I knew full well that my license wasn't suspended. I knew full well that my license was suspended, but they were telling me that it was. They pulled me out of the car, sit me on the sidewalk. This is not at night. This is after I'm getting off of work. They come in. They bring another vehicle out. They have the dogs go through my car, and then they wanted to put me in the back of the squad car to take me in because it had been so long since they used their fingerprint tick out in the field that every cop that was there had one, and that was like 4 of them. They got all dried up.
Wow!
Not one of them would work. So I had to take them to the station to get fingerprinted.
They took you to the station to get fingerprinted?
Here's the thing. Not only did they take me to the station to get fingerprinted, they were going to put me in this. They were going to put me in the back of this car. Now you know how big I was at the time. I was over 600 pounds. I was really, really big.
Right.
I couldn't fit in the back of the squad car, and I told them. That's when I had to get loud. I got loud. I said, "Look, listen. I am not a criminal. When I straighten all this out tomorrow, you will see that my license is just fine. First of all, I don't even understand how I got pulled over back there when my license is in my pocket. How did you know my license was? If it was suspended, how would you know?
Right.
But
they would have to run the tags and know
right.
that you were that person inside that vehicle.
Right, exactly. And I'm just like, that. It was just a lot. So I couldn't get in the car. So they allowed me at that point to have somebody come get me and drive me to the station. I got fingerprinted. I then got sat in the cell. I was in the cell for about an hour and a half. Came out and was able to go home. I couldn't take my car. Couldn't get it till the next day. But
Jeez.
it was embarrassing all the way around. And then when I walked in, because of my side, I walk in and I'm hearing the cops' laughter. Hearing them laugh. And it was the most degrading and embarrassing situation that I ever remember being in. It was just bad. It was just bad. And for what? And I hear these stories all the time. And the stories that go under the radar, stuff that here, I'll say that black people are tired of telling these stories. Black people are tired of sweeping these stories under the rug. And that's where you get the kickbacks. That's where you get, and I've heard so often on these shows and from different ones. Oh, why is there looting in the streets, and why is there this, and why is there that? What is going on? These people have to calm down. There's nothing out here that's going on that's serious that they have to riot. And you got to be kidding me.
So let's talk about that for a minute. I looked up some statistics. In the United States between 2013 and 2019, there were 200, or in 2019, there were 259 black people were killed by police in the United States, 182 Hispanics, 13 Native Americans, 406 white people. But what that equates to is 30 per million black people, and 12, we'll just, because you're black, I'm white, 12 per million for whites because of, there's more white folks out there. So,
right.
So that is what started a lot of the protest. Well, there's been protests for a long time because of this issue with black folks getting killed by police. I would say it was around March, when George Floyd happened in Minneapolis, where that cop was kneeling on his neck and he ended up dying afterward. Some people say, oh, that was because of a drug overdose or whatever, but we all saw the video. And then that is what began all of these protests, riots. What are your thoughts on all of this? I just throw it back to you.
It hurts. It hurts. As a grown man, in 1 year, I've never cried as much as I have this year. In a year of sickness and disease, pandemic, more than one pandemic. Yeah, we're living under COVID-19, but we're also living under the pandemic of racism that has bubbled up to the surface and shown itself in the highest court in the land. It's undeniable that it's come down from the White House. It has, in a sense, pulled the covers off of what a lot of us thought, not that we thought it was gone, but didn't know how close, didn't know how close it was to us. This racial imbalance has shown itself in 2020, and actually has been showing itself for the last 4 years. It's turning brother against brother. It's divided best friends. It's divided father and son. A lot of young people know a lot more than what a lot of old people do. A lot of old people are stuck in their ways. They believe what they believe. And a lot of young people are sitting out here saying, no, that's wrong. This is wrong. And if you can't look at this and see the wrong, there's something wrong with you. The Black Lives Matter movement wasn't there to say that Black lives were the only lives that mattered. They were just saying our lives matter too. And when we hear things like all lives matter, and when we know for a fact that we're part of all lives, but you're showing us daily that our lives don't matter. There's a police officer with a knee on a man's neck while he screams for his mother. Grown man screaming for his mother because he knows his breath is being cut off and he is about to die.
Scary.
I've got a cop looking at every camera that's looking at him with his hands on his hips as if to say, fuck it. I've got it. I've got this. I'm fine. I'm going to be fine after this. I'm going to be alive after this. Probably still at my job after this. There's a lot of people that's going to sympathize and be on my side because of this. And I am right.
So do you think because right after this happened, then you had demonstrations and things. If no one got out in the streets, do you think he would have just went on as the police officer, just went on about his job and his boss wouldn't have done anything about this?
I can't say that for sure. Because there's no way that they could come out of this without there being backlash. Martin Luther King said it himself. I revel in King, so I know a lot of the things that he said, and they manifest in my head a lot of the times, and when things like this go on. But he said, a man who won't die for something is not fit to live. And it just came to a point where the people said, we're out here dying anyway. I'm standing up. No more. This cannot keep happening. It's not okay. It's not okay. And we need you to see that it's not okay. Why? In the first place, why do you think that this is fine? What in your twisted mind makes you think that it's okay to kill like this at will? What authority do you have to let loose? What fear do you have in your heart of black people that strong that we're getting killed in these numbers? It's insane. It is insane. It's insane. And eventually, because of the struggle we're in, it was going to happen. Things were going to blow up and they were going to bubble. And all we're asking for is equality. That's what Black Lives Matter was all about. We want to be equal. And to be honest with you, communities, the the authorities really need to be happy that we were just looking for equality and not looking for revenge.
So I have 2 questions. When I first heard about BLM and everything, I went on the website to read and look. Do you separate the organization, Black Lives Matter, to the actual activists, Black Lives Matter?
Do I separate the organization from the
right? Because there's a lot of money that has been raised, and it's been donated to politicians from that organization. So the way I guess I look at it, I see the folks in the street actually doing the work. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just not looking at the whole picture, or I got misled somewhere or whatever. But I see an organization that has a website and a staff, and then I see people in the street doing the work.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen. Everything there has to be organization, or it's just going to be a bunch of flailing arms. You know, you got a bunch of people out here in the street, and what if you're saying the people out in the street are doing the work? The people out in the street are just a part of it. Black Lives Matter is a movement that is. You're right. It's working in the political system. It's also working in the courtrooms. It's also working in these boardrooms. It's also working on Capitol Hill. It's working so that things are becoming, or so things can become equal. They want to make our face known. They want to make it so that that equality is possible. You can't just do that with protesters in the street. That's not going to happen. Because then all the oppressor has to do is wait for you to get tired and go away.
Roger.
And you will eventually. You will. Eventually it'll get, regardless of how much you want to talk about, you want to, you're fighting, the numbers will dwindle eventually. You might start out with thousands of protesters, and by day 45 of the protest, you're down to 1,000 protesters. Things will start to get quiet after a while. And the association, the actual organization is what continues to push the matter forward. You know, you can't, that organization is what doesn't let it die. That's where the main work, that's where the work is going in at. Black Lives Matter movement on the street is definitely necessary. That's the face. The organization is the heart.
So it's all needed. What does this might be a long answer, but what does equality actually look like in America for you?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I can say that.
Okay.
I don't know that I've ever seen it. And that's from a boy coming up to a grown man now. When I lived in Cuba myself, every Friday I would get in the lounge, and I would get up, and I would go on Saturday mornings to get me some new G.I. Joes. You remember that? I was a G.I. Joe fan. Every Saturday morning, I had enough money to go get me 2 new G.I. Joes. I was a G.I. Joe nut. And the store where I went to every Saturday, they knew what I was coming in here for. The people in there knew who I was by face. They didn't know me to talk. I didn't talk to them much. But what they saw was a young boy coming in here, and he was black. I got followed around that store every Saturday morning. Every Saturday morning. I'm talking about for a couple of years I did that.
So did you know back then that, like, were you aware that I'm black and people are not as...
My father made me aware.
Okay.
My father made me aware. My father made me aware. My father made me aware of where I was. My father made me aware of where I was, and because even in those times, even in those times, you know, you could still be in places that you were around a lot of other black people, and things didn't seem that way. But I was made aware early on, because I lived in places like Springfield, Sugar Heights. I was in Xenia a lot. I was in Fairborn a lot. I was made aware early on. Coming out of Springfield, when I moved there and I started going to Monticello, there was a guy there, and this is how I became friends with a guy named Steve. And Steve, I won't say his last name because I don't know if he wants to say it, but Steve was a friend of your brother's and a friend of the family, a real close one for a long time.
Right.
It may still be. I'm not sure because I haven't talked to Steve in years. But when I went to Monticello, I came in and it was one of the. I was a big guy then too. And I was coming out of Springfield. I was going into the 5th grade. Mike and I had become real close, and I came into school, but we weren't in. We were in the same class. We were in the same classroom.
Mike's my brother, so people know.
Yeah, right. And we were in the same classroom, but on the for some reason that day at recess, we weren't together, and another really big guy came over and began to pick on me. And I was like, what's going on here? What's the problem? I don't even know you. What's going on? And he said, you don't have to know me, nigger. And, oh, okay. Well, apparently you were born and raised here, and you thought that it was going to be easy to just say that to me and think that there weren't going to be any repercussions. So I stepped back immediately, and I was getting ready to knock Craig out. But before I could do it, out of nowhere, Steve came and punched Craig so hard that ear started bleeding.
Jeez.
His ear was bleeding. Craig was on the ground physically. I think they had to either call, he was definitely in them with the nerves. I think they called the hospital because Craig knocked the hell out. Steve knocked the hell out of Craig. And I just remember sitting there going, wow, he didn't have to do that. You know, where did this come from? And that's where, and that was the day, you know, that I started to let my guards down a lot in terms of, you know, not everybody out here is out to get you.
Right.
Not everybody out here is that way. I don't have to walk around through life hating all white people because they're white. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Especially not in a world where I'm asking them not to hate me because I'm black.
Right.
I have a humongous tolerance level, but for myself. But I have no tolerance for my children. I have a humongous tolerance level for myself, but I have no tolerance level for my people. And when the things that have happened over the last year happened, just over the last year, and so many others have happened. And like we talked about the other day, there's been so many other shootings and killings from police officers that have gone under the radar, that haven't made local or national news. The harassment of it all, and the blatant discouragement, I will say, of believing that not only did this happen again, but they're going to get off for it. We don't even expect it. When we hear these things, and not only do we expect it, cities expect it now. Cities expect it. Ordinances expect it. They expect these cops to get off.
Immunity. Qualified immunity.
Just the other day, when we had all these people storm the Capitol, just the day before, Jacob Blake's, who was shot in the back 7 times, the verdict came down on his case.
Yes, I watched that. The prosecutor came out and announced.
4 days prior to that, they had National Guard set up in Kenosha. National Guard was chilling. They was up there, and they had been there, and they weren't going to let anything happen to Kenosha. Why? They expected that outcome. They expected the outcome. And they were there, and they were ready for any backlash to come from my community. Meanwhile, the very next day, a group of Trump-following white people stormed the Capitol. Their Capitol in D.C. A lot of people were wondering at the time, where is the security? Well, a lot of my people knew what I know. There was no security because there never was meant to be any security. We had a president who sent in this group, a president who riled them up, who played them like a fiddle, who puppet mastered all of this, and sent them running towards the Capitol, got on TV, and then said, we can't have anybody hurt. What you're doing is right. In his speech, he told them they were right, and if I could, I'd be there with you. We know this election was stolen. All the things that is rousing them up inside of this speech that's supposed to be telling them to stop. We all know what would have happened if that was a group of Black Lives Matter supporters or protesters going towards the Capitol, climbing up the wall, sitting in their offices, vandalizing.
Well, it's never happened before. This is.
They would have picked us off one at a time. One at a time. It's a scary thought. You had 4 people from there that died that day. And our president allowed that. 4 people that you sent in died that day. But it was those 4. Had it been us, when they start looting, we start shooting. Kill them, one at a time. Boop, boop, boop. And they got picked off one at a time. And the carnage would have been ridiculous. And that, to me, Matt, to your original question,
sure,
is what equality looks like in America to me. That's what equality looks like in America to me. It to me, from my eyes, that's as close to equal as I see us getting.
So
let me say this because I want to speak to the equality issue. If you've ever seen the pictures and the conversations and the tears, the emotions of the people, my elders, when Barack Obama was elected president of the United States, and didn't wonder why. I would tell you, some people think Some people, you would think, what has been the greatest, what has been the most historic thing that you have seen from right now, from 2020, in your entire life? The most historic thing, and I will point it out, I will tell everyone, the most historic thing that any of us has ever seen is the electing of a black president. And the most, even to take it even further, him getting a second term.
Why do you say that?
I say that because when you look at the racism and the pattern in this country that has come up for hundreds and hundreds of years, there isn't a black person anywhere that thought that's my age or older that could ever even imagine living to see a black president. We made jokes. We made, there was comedy special that we all joked and kidded that Bill Clinton was as close to a black president as we would ever get. And there was a lot of jokes and kidding around.
I was in basic training when Barack Obama was elected. I didn't hear much. We had one of our sergeants come out who was a black dude, but he came out and he's like, "All right, Barack Obama's your president. Now push." It was kind of funny, but anyway.
Right. I mean, and there's people who will fight me to the death, tooth and nail. But either way, whether you hated him or whether you loved him,
I was somewhere in the middle. I got to be.
I'm not even asking about what we thought about the politics. I'm just saying the electing of the black man to the highest job in the land. The
leader of the free world.
The leader of the free world was a black man. That is, just think about it. Think about it.
So, quick question. Barack Obama, he was, when I grew up, we called black and white folks mixed. And then it was now biracial. I'm not even sure what the proper nomenclature is. So why, if there's a man who's black and white,
right,
he's considered black, and I've been told because they appear and they're treated, and what is your thought on that?
That's exactly it.
Wasn't even a full question there. I'm just kind of mumbling over myself.
You don't even have to ask that as a full question. It's the bottom line is, if you have the appearance of any black in you, America will treat you as a black man.
Okay.
Period.
And that's what I was told. So that's okay.
So then as the black community, we accept that. We bring you are black. See, now, you can be what I like to call delusional in the terms of those like Tiger Woods. I put him out there as I'm not saying don't embrace your racial background. I'm not saying don't embrace your culture from other. If you are Asian on one side, or if you are Latino on one side, or if you are white on one side, I'm not saying that. I'm saying when you step out the door, if you never open your mouth, the country sees you as black, and that's how you will be treated. Now, Tiger might not be treated like that all the time because Tiger is a billionaire black man. So the green tends to change the black and the white. But even still coming up, there's no change in that. You still have faith. Your share. You could say you are whatever you want to say you are.
Right.
The country is going to tell you who you are when when you get out here in these, like I said, in the stores, when you're driving in the streets and the police are pulling you over. Try explaining to a cop who is scared to death of black man, of just the presence of a black man, that you're mixed. It's not gonna go over.
I agree. I've heard folks talk about that, and I want to put that out for the audience in case there's somebody who's listening who says, well, Barack Obama, yeah, he was black, but he was raised by his white family. So then because you hear this stuff on talk radio all the time, and I enjoy your perspective because I want people. I can come on here and talk about this stuff all day long, but I think it means more coming from you. So with all that said, now we were talking about allies. Go ahead.
Hold on real quick, man. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I like what you said there. I appreciate the fact that you said it means more. It means more coming from me, and that goes back to something else that we were talking about the other day. The experience is mine. So this conversation, from that perspective, would mean more. And I thank you for recognizing that. One thing that whites will never be is black.
Right.
And one thing that black will never be is white. I can't relate to what it is that you've gone through. I've been around. I've been around your whole life.
You have.
And called you brother, and I love you.
I love you too, man.
Like we were blood. But I don't understand if the showdown, even in the time when we lived in Huber Heights together, if the showdown goes down and you go with your family and I go off with my brother and my dad, the line is drawn. If there's a war, if there is a line that draws between the races, I'm over here, you're over there. I don't understand completely what you're going through, and you can never understand completely what I'm going through. And I hate it more than anything when people try to tell me because they have black members in their family or extended family, or they have friends, close friends, that they get it, that they understand. You don't. You don't. You can't. You weren't built to understand my struggle. I wasn't built to understand yours. I don't know the things that you go through daily. I don't know what pulls you down or pulls you back. But I was given the tools from God to fight my own battles, to fight my fights. I wasn't given the ones to fight yours. I don't know what you go through, but you will never, ever know what I'm going through. And here's the thing. That's a good thing. I believe that white people that use the privilege that they have, once they recognize that they have that privilege, can use it to further the equality in this country. But if they don't, if they sit on that privilege, that's where we get the Capitol building the other day. When you sit on that privilege, when you know that privilege is there and you embrace it, as opposed to saying there's enough here for everybody. There's enough here for you too. You're in this country as well. You are as much a part of this country as any of us. If I really told the American history story, you built this country. We built the White House.
True.
Built it.
That's history.
Built the White House. So I'm saying that to say things will get better when we understand our lane. I don't need you over here trying to tell me about me. I need you in your lane understanding the privilege and the rights that you have that can help me get to where you are.
And that's what makes conversation, I think, more than ever today. Conversations like these are important, and not conversations where it gets heated, where I'm gonna, well, what about this, and I'm coming after you, and no, but you did, the blame game, in my opinion, is not going to further us. We have to understand, like you said, you don't understand me, I don't understand you, the struggle, right? So
right.
The best we can do is have we're never going to understand it, but the best, or know what it's like. But the best we can do is talk about it and figure out how to best treat each other. And if we treat each other equally, we'll at least be able to take more steps forward. That's my point.
And I totally agree with that. Problem is, a lot of the times that when we come to tables to have conversations, sometimes the wound is so open that we need understanding from one side or the other. The wound is so big. The wound is so big at some points that if I come to the table, I'm already mad. I'm already heated. And what tends to happen is I'm sitting down with you. You are still more than anything else. You're a man first. You're a man first. You're a man first. I'm a man. I come to the table pissed off about whatever's going on with me, and I start swinging, and I come out the gate. And even if you're sitting there trying to be understanding for a minute, as soon as I hit that soft spot, it doesn't matter that you came to the table to be diplomatic. You just punched me in my spot, so now I'm a man, and now I'm punching back. And that's what ends up happening. We end up throwing blows, and it just does, nothing gets done. Nothing gets done because we both have our sides. We both end up seeing things the way we want to see things. You did this, and I did, and because of that, I did this. And
so, couldn't the answer to be, instead of going right in the gate, hitting on soft spots and things, work on the things that we can work on, and move to the, put the tougher issues on the back burner?
Well, here's the thing. It could be. That's exactly what it should be. I'll say that. That's exactly what it should be. Problem is, we've been wanting to do that for so long and trying to do that. And we've been the diplomatic ones. We've been, because what else is there to do? That's why I said we do a lot of praying. We do a lot of talking. We do a lot of T-shirt making and walking around and saying sayings and this and that and the other thing. Eventually, when we're seeing that it's not working, between you and I, we are saying what's right, what I believe to be right. Yes, that needs to happen. Yes, those things those conversations need to come about. But I'll say this: it's the bruise. It's not even a wound; it's the bruise. If you've ever had a bruise anywhere on your body where it's been hit that exact same spot over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until it starts to bruise. Now, any little touch on that spot hurts. And you start to defend that spot. If somebody wants to come up to you and wants to put their hand where that bruise is, and you know it hurts like hell every time somebody touches it, or every time the air touches it, even. When somebody comes up to touch it, you are defending it now. You're smacking their hand away.
Right.
It has, some things have to be taken with force after a while. If you're not hearing me when I'm saying, you're hitting me to the point where I'm starting to bruise. And now I've bruised 1,000,000 times over, and you're still hitting me in that spot. And when I say that, I mean just like when when the whole thing that went down with George Floyd brought everything that it wasn't the first, and then we soon seen that it wasn't the last. Even in the midst of the protest and the unrest in every city across the state or across the country, we turn around and we have more killings, more shootings. We have the Jacob Blakes. We have the Breonna Taylors. I sat at my job like we talked the other day. I sat at my job and I watched. I was one of the first ones to get the video of Jacob Blake being shot.
You edit media with a news organization.
Right. And I'm watching this video, and I just shook. I couldn't touch the buttons. I couldn't turn the knobs. I couldn't form a thought. I couldn't stop the tears. Because what was that saying to me? One, it was saying, here we go again. Two, it was saying, my brother just got shot and killed. Because when I'm looking at this, there's 7 shots in the back, blatantly in the back. There's no way he survived. I have no idea how he survived this. But from looking at this, there's no way he's still alive. Because I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in his back. From close range. 3, I'm saying to myself, did none of this that we've been doing, none of these protests, none of what we've been saying about Floyd, none of this made an impact on any of the lives of any of these boys in blue? Are you serious right now? 7 times? Even if you believe that he had a weapon on the inside of that car, and you shot him in his back twice, he was down after that. But you had to let go 5 more times. It just goes to the arrogance to say, I'll get off. There'll be no charges filed. This is I'm fighting for my life here. And the bad part about it is, we knew it was going to get off. And just one day before the Capitol gets stormed, no charges filed. No charges filed in Kenosha. There were protests afterwards. There weren't any rioting. There was no rioting. There was no looting.
Where at?
This is in Kenosha, where Jacob Blake where the case went to court.
I thought in Kenosha, that's where, wasn't that where the kid was there and he shot some folks too, and then
yeah. That happened after the shooting. I'm talking about after the verdict came down.
Oh, Roger, yes.
Right. I'm talking about.
Okay, so with the verdict, something that struck me is they didn't charge Jacob Blake with anything either. So why was he shot? I don't understand why he was shot if he didn't commit any crimes.
Exactly.
I mean, it honestly, it's not against the law to yell at cops. It's just not. I don't know.
You've seen it over and over. I've seen in my line of work, I've seen for years. And you can go and see it for yourself now because of a device we all have now called YouTube.
Right.
You can go to it and watch incident after incident where young white men will completely tell the police officer, will tell law enforcement about themselves, No, I'm not getting out of this car. No, you won't do this. No, you won't do that. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I have? Do you know this? Do you know that about? And completely get nothing. There'll be nothing. There'll be nothing. They will drive off from that situation. They may get a ticket.
Well, there were 406 white people killed by police in 2019. So it does happen. But
it definitely
not at a rate as black folks get killed.
Right. And like we talked about earlier, the numbers makes it more of a murder type situation. And for what? You got to look at the for what of these situations too. See, we don't see in the news, we don't see in the media a lot of times of these same white people getting killed on tape and in the mess like this. Are these cops getting off for those crimes? We got to ask, what happened in those crimes to make? I mean, I do not discredit good officers. You have been given this license to be good officers. If somebody comes out of the house with a gun and they are drawing down on you, and it is your job to lay him down. We're talking about routine traffic stops. We're talking about comparability.
Or when people run away.
We're talking about you're not doing anything at all. Standing in the spot, you got your house broke. You got broken into. They broke into your house and shot and killed you.
Right.
Broke the wrong house.
Which happens. That and no-knock warrants. That's a huge issue that for me personally, no-knock warrants need to be done away with. Done away with. There was a police officer here in Dayton not too long ago that was killed during a no-knock warrant. I mean, people get killed on both sides. No-knock warrants, that's how, well, they're saying now, I guess, that there was a knock at the door for Breonna Taylor, but I don't know.
One of my favorite Martin Luther King quotes will always stand is, no one knows why they're alive until they know what they died for.
Huh.
You've got to identify with your struggle, identify with your people, and know what's worth fighting for. My freedom is worth fighting for. My life is my freedom. My life is worth fighting for.
Definitely.
I'm important on a lot of levels, and I'm not going to let anybody. I'm not going to let a Trump-led White House. I'm not going to let these. I'm just not going to let these racists out here tell me that my life is meaningless. And I'm not going to become a statistic. I'm not going to be the guy who got shot in his car for doing nothing. I tell myself day in and day out, I'm not going to be that guy. But the truth of the matter is, I could be that guy. That's the scary part. There's the difference. There's the difference. I don't think that's anything that you ever have to worry about, man. I don't think you ever have to worry about getting up, going from here to there, whether you're breaking the law or not. When I'm talking about breaking the law, I mean speeding.
Right.
Or
I got a ticket the other day.
Yeah, or bad tags, something goofy like that. They pull you over for that, bad tail light.
Cops did mess with me when I was a kid. They messed with my son when he was a kid. But my son he was able to call me once, and I was able to come down and square the situation away. But I haven't really had.
Let me ask you. let me ask you, in any situation, and this is where that difference lies.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a situation where you got pulled over, or you got stopped, or you got in any law enforcement type situation where you thought to yourself for a second, I may not walk out of this?
Not me.
This might be.
Not me.
Yeah.
But my son did. He showed me the video. They were letting off fireworks, I guess. They were driving around the street throwing fireworks like a bunch of idiots, but teenagers.
Right.
And they pulled up in the driveway, and as soon as they pulled up, the cops surrounded them with ARs and made them get on the ground and do all kind of crazy stuff.
Wow.
So he's had to deal with things like that. He's had to be taken out of the car, and they stopped him for expired tags, and then they used his air fresheners thinking he had weed in his car. So they were going to bring out the dog but the dog was in Miamisburg and wasn't able to come out, and he's had a lot more dealings with the cop, not big time, but than I have.
Cops tend to have a thing for, especially out in Hubert. They had the same thing when we were teenagers. They have a thing for young adults, young kids.
Right.
And you get and I don't want to talk about smaller municipalities, but a lot of times it is true. They have quotas to meet. They have, and a lot of times there's just not much visible for you to do. You know what I mean? There's just not a lot going on. And so sometimes it is for them to get up behind the car and see if something looks suspicious. Sometimes I've had police officer friends tell me sometimes, whether you believe it or not, in these smaller municipalities, sometimes the job just gets boring. And you're out there and you're patrolling, especially when you're patrolling. So you start looking for something to do. And you start with, sometimes you start with teenagers. Sometimes you start with, okay, well, this might look suspicious. Why is he in this neighborhood? I've had so many I've been pulled over so many times because of why are you in this neighborhood?
Wow.
This is not a neighborhood you should be in. Why shouldn't I be in the neighborhood? What do you mean? What do you mean? Why should I? If I'm driving through, or if I live here, it's crazy. It really is crazy.
I've never been pulled over by the cops for telling me I was in the wrong neighborhood, but I was delivering mail once in DeSoto Bass, and some old lady opened the door and was like, "Honey, you need to get out of here. It's after dark." I was like, "What?"
Well, that might have been a fair warning. I've been around the Bass for a while, and yeah.
I was just delivering mail. I'm all right.
Yeah. Well, she might have been telling you something truthful, especially in delivering mail, especially the way, the way even mailmen are getting robbed these days. You see, everybody's got these Ring cameras nowadays because so many boxes and packages are getting stolen.
Right.
So it's that might have been a fair one. That might have been a warning out too.
It was my last stop. I was out of there anyway. But it was like 9-10 o'clock at night. It was a late night, and she was like in her nightgown, opened the door, was like, "Honey, you need to get out of here." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I'm just delivering mail."
Right, man. I feel you. But yeah, man, that divide is huge. It's great. It's a great big divide, and we're not going to bring it any closer unless the conversations are had and taken seriously. We can't just continue to talk and not act.
Yeah, I think the conversations are important. And as important, listening. You're right. I'll never be able to understand what Damon goes through. But at least I can listen to empathize, sympathize, and understand more than what I did yesterday.
Right. Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. When we get to a point where everyone understands that this will be a much better world. It'll be a much better world. But do I believe? Here's the thing. I'm so pessimistic when it comes to those things that I don't ever believe that not only will it happen, I don't believe that it can happen. I just don't. Okay, I'll take that back. I believe in God first. So I believe that anything can happen. I believe that all things are possible. My Bible says that all things are possible through Christ. So it can happen. As a man, I don't see it happening. But I would love for it to. I would be at that table. I would be at that table to have that conversation. I definitely would. I wouldn't be at home talking about, we need to have that conversation while the conversation was going on.
Right.
And there's a lot of those. A lot of people who sit on the sidelines and talk about how bad the voting process is, but won't vote. As if you're not a part of the solution, this whole cliche, you are the problem.
Well, I appreciate you coming on.
And I appreciate you having me, man. And I want to wish everyone out there a very happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And I advise you not to just take it and watch Netflix all day. Do something. Reach out. Find out how you can make this thing that we want to call equality better. There are organizations. There are ways to just walk up to a person and say, hey, say hello, speak, be kind, be kind. Kindness is
love your
contagious.
neighbor.
Kindness is contagious. It is contagious. Love will defeat hate if we let it. So that's where I'm at with it, man.
Well, thanks, Damon. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on Truman's Town Hall.
You got it, brother. Love you, man.
Love you too.
All right, man. Thank you.
Yep.